Hey, I heard you want to grow your business with data? Wow, great idea. The problem, what most people have with data setups, it's not getting started. Most of the people just drop some kind of analytics tool on their website or in their app, and then, well, it produces some numbers, produce some reports. But making sense of data to really get it into the shape to improve your products or to improve your marketing campaigns, that is usually the hard part. And it takes good planning and a little bit more time than just adding a script. So I like to help you in this video series. And in this first episode, I will tell you a little bit about the foundations of everything, the metrics. So, where do we start? We don't start by selecting any kind of tools. We will talk about it, maybe in 2 or 3 episodes. We also will not talk about tracking plans or anything else. So, what we want to talk about or where we want to start is basically looking at your business or looking at, this video, in my business to get an idea what is the purpose of the business, what are the goals of the business, what makes the business, so what are the business objects. And why are we doing this? Because I like to start a new data project, usually building the foundations. And for me, the foundations is a metric framework. So why a metric framework? Because in the end, metrics will define a lot of things in our data stack. So they will define what kind of tracking we want to implement. They also might define what kind of tracking service we might to use. Because in the end, some metrics are easier to analyze or to track in specific kind of tools. They define what kind of pipelines we have to put into. So for example, when we define a metric that is depending on data from 2 systems, we have to make sure that the data from the 2 systems is in our data warehouse in the end. So metrics are the foundation. And the great thing is there are now tools in the end which are called metric layers. And in this metric layer, then you take the metrics that we define today, and we later will put them into these metric tools. And basically this is like the layer that we will then use for any kind of reporting or for any kind of, let's say, outgoing data. So what I'm trying to do in this, I don't know how many episodes of series, is to take you to the full journey, which I'm doing for my business, for setting up a full data stack. Starting with some planning, starting with boring stuff, so we get our hands dirty with tools. No, so you don't have to be worried. We will do that, not today, not tomorrow, maybe not in the next episodes, but we will do. But we start first with the planning, because what I learned in 7 years working in different kind of data setups is the more time we spend in this foundational phase, the easier it gets later. And in the end, I hope you will see that everything then comes together. So that's the plan. So let's start today with my approach, how I set up my metrics framework for deepskydata. And I will walk you through every step that I took to do the first version. And to be precise, what I do today is the version 1, or maybe 0.5 in a way. So what I'm doing right now is an ongoing process. So it's useful to revisit everything, what we do today, in 2 months, half a year, and so on. Because it will change. Your goals will change. Your business will change. Your business will grow. And by that, of course, your metrics framework has to change. Because what we don't want to do, and you will see that, is we don't want to stuff up hundreds of metrics into that. We will focus. So we will just select some and we will focus on that. But let's join me during my metric setup session. Okay, let's dive into it. So unfortunately you don't see me today because it is how it is. Just as I wanted to start, my front camera stopped working. But I wanted to record this. So I'm recording now without that you see me, but I think that's fine. So how do I approach a metric framework? I think there are 100 of ways to do that. And this is basically my approach that I have developed over, I would say, the last 5 years. And it's a little bit different than I did the stuff 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I would have just sit down and thought, okay, what are my important metrics I want to track today, and then maybe derive some metrics from that, who are basically like, basically making my core metrics. Today, I do it broader. And so here we start. So I use a template that created some time ago, and so I call it the metrics framework template. And so it starts by looking into business objects in action. And so why do I do this? I do this because I need to know what kind of business action can happen, or what kind of business process this whole business is built around. And why it's so important for me is like, when I create metrics and then later use these metrics in a report, I need to make the connection to my daily business. If I don't make the connection to my daily business, every kind of reporting is useless, because in the end, you track something because you want to improve something. You track something because you want to understand something. And if I cannot connect it to my business items, it's really hard to do. And so in the past, I just tracked things on the website, and so they usually matched 50% with the business object, but not always. Like a website navigation is not a business object. And so translating it to your business context helped me a lot to define better metrics, and then later build better reports and connect the data with the business, especially when later people work with that who usually don't work in analytics and data, because they understand what a package is in my case. So they understand what content is, they understand what a lead is, they understand what a project is. And so this is why this today is the most important part of any kind of metrics framework and setup that I'm doing. This is also like the most important part, which will be the next episode when we work on the tracking plan. This is really the foundation for that, and not so much what is really like on the app or within the website. So let's look into that. So what I did here is like I defined all the different kind of business objects. And so this is, for example, this is for my deepskydata business. And so in deepskydata, I provide solution packages. So of course I have a package here. And I define all the different kind of action that can happen around a package. So the package can be viewed, obviously. Yes, and of course a package can be created. It's important for me because I want to track that. I want to track how many packages I create maybe over a year ago. Then, yes, of course, like a package can be delivered in the end. And before that, it has to be purchased. And maybe I do a call concerning a package because a customer is interested in that. And around all these different kind of business objects, I do the same thing. So I try to come up with different kind of action that can happen. Because in the end, what it happens is like you have the combination of an object where an action can happen, and when an action has been happened, an event can be triggered. And the event in the end will be then a tracking event. And so by that, it fits together. So, but how does this translate into metrics? So I go a little bit deeper. And so the next thing which is important for me is like to bring the goal dimension into that. And so, of course, like everything that we should do, we should have at least some kind of formulated goal. And so I have this as well. So I have the solve customers' data problems and grow the data insights in a friendly and reliable way. I don't know, it's my goal at the moment. And so I broke it up basically into two goal definitions. Like it's like one, solve customers' data problems and grow the data insights. And I also defined like the thing that in a friendly and reliable way. The first one is much easier because it's more tangible and it will definitely define 80% of my business. The second one is interesting because it's a little bit more fuzzy, but it's still something which is important for me. So for me, these are the two core things how I do business. But we will focus today on the left side because it's much easier, and it's much easier for me to explain it to you. So once we have defined the goals, I usually go a step deeper and say, okay, how does the usual life cycle of my business look like? And so let me zoom in a little bit. And here we go. So I just sketch out how I see a life cycle of a typical customer that I work with. And so nothing surprising here. So they see something which I write or which I record. Maybe they saw this video here, and then maybe they subscribe to something, and then I have a giveaway which is like a setup check that I offer for free. And so maybe they do this, and maybe they find it interesting. Then they make an appointment, and then they might book a package in the end. And so what I also do is I send around emails to ask them how they feel at specific kind of milestones within the project, so that I get a feedback channel to see if the client becomes unhappy or has a little bit concerns and so on, because sometimes this communication is lost. So of course I want to see if they're happy during the way, then they get the delivered. And in best case, I get a testimonial for them. And then maybe they also rebook a different package and in the end recommend us. So these are also interesting events that I want to track over time. Not all of them are important at maybe the beginning. So this is something we will see in the next step. Is of course, I can create a metric frameworks for everything like this, but it will be quite a huge framework. And so we always want to start small and grow over time. So we do that. And so this is why I have something which I call focus metrics. And I want to make sure that I just select some kind of metrics for the beginning and for a current phase that I am. I mean, a phase can be 6 weeks, so it doesn't have to be a year or so. So you can say, okay, in the next 6 weeks, we focus on content creation. On then maybe the next quarter, we focus on retention and so on. So usually you do this in product as well, and sometimes also in marketing, that you have specific focus topics that you do in a specific time frame. And so for me, for example, I'm still in a phase where I create a lot of content. So for this video. And so because I'm just building up, the most important thing for me right now is content created. It's not a really, let's say, sexy metric in the end, because my business does not basically immediately have a revenue from that, just because I created content. But for me right now, it's I want to push myself into that I want to create content pieces. And so these are on different channels. So this is the video, then I do some content on LinkedIn, and I want to do some blog posts and so on. So these usually should all appear here. And so this is why I set this as my focus metric. So I usually pick one as a focus metric, or some people call it North Star metric, or so whatever. So call it however you want. Define maybe 2 or 3, totally fine, but maybe not 10. So that would make focus metric a little bit unfocused. And so content created is my focus metrics. And so I will already define some metrics which are around this content created thing. And so I could have defined supporting metrics in the funnel or process before. So for example, content drafts created, content ideas submitted. But this is not, at the moment, this will not help me so much, because this is not, at the moment, not a problem for me, but for me, it's more the problem to get the content created. What I did more is more the following metrics that I want to monitor them as well, because even when it's not when they are not in the major focus, they are still something which is important for me. So I create something, of course, I want to see if people view it, and I also want to see if I can generate subscribers or followers, depending on the platform. And so based on that, I can already get a relational metric like a viewed subscription rate, which in some cases I can even connect to the content piece. So sometimes, for example, in the blog, when I have a sign up there, then I can see which kind of content piece have created a subscription. Sometimes it's not related. So for example, when I track LinkedIn stuff, Of course, I can see the views on specific LinkedIn posts, but I don't know when someone becomes a follower of mine, from which kind of content piece. I mean, of course, I can do some analytics to say, okay, this post was online by that time. So I give it a time frame of maybe 12 hours. And then within this 12 hours, every new follower that comes in is attributed to this content thing. Maybe I do this in the future. Right now, it's fine that I don't have it. But what I like is so these are absolute metrics. Absolute metrics is basically, it's counting up, it's summing up. So it's an event happening, and we just count it up over time. So it's usually the foundation of everything. A relational metric like this one is that usually brings two other metrics, as said, in a relationship. And the good thing about this is it gives you a little bit of an idea which is not based on volume. So in that case, viewed subscription rate, I can see, okay, I can learn, for example, I need 2,000 views of my content to basically generate 20 followers or subscribers. So I know when I, for example, optimize the views, I can expect that maybe my subscriptions and followers will grow as well. So I can, for example, then make some forecasts about, okay, I create one content piece generates 300 views. And so by 300 views, because of this rate, I know I get 10 new subscribers. So I know with every new content piece I create, I have the potential of 10 new subscribers. And so this is pretty cool already, because it gives me some kind of mechanic how the whole system will work and so on. So this is why I choose these different kind of metrics. I mean, in the end, I do offering solution packages. And so I put package views also into the whole focus metrics thing, because I mean, in the end, it ends up that I want to have people checking out some kind of packages. So right now I don't really optimize on that, but I like to have it already here and already been tracked. And so the other idea is basically when I link out, for example, from specific content to packages, which I don't do at the moment a lot, but I plan to do it in the future, then of course I would like to see, okay, how much content views then maybe I can attribute to package views. So how much people I can get from a content piece to a package view. But this is more like a future. I mean, I could have put it not here in, but I like to have it here. So as you can see, this is a flexible thing. So in the end, you can do whatever you want, but focus metrics for me is important that you have the possibility to really limit the stuff. So moving up, as you can already see, I like in this framework, I also like to drop some metric ideas I might have for the future. And so this is more like a backlog. This is a backlog of metrics. And I know usually this backlog grows over time. So for example, when I start to do an analysis, I might come up with an idea oh, well, this metric could be interesting to see. And so I put it here on the list, because these are candidates for future focus metrics things. And so obvious things, number of leads, return on ad spend, project acquisition costs, how many steps I have automated. I like these kind of metrics, so about backend or operational processes, different kind of things. But right now, not so important. Which is a little bit more important, interesting, is I try to define some kind of segments. And so what do I do with segments? So in the end, I have different kind of metrics, and I want to break down these metrics by specific segments. So this can be audiences that I want to serve. Interestingly, audience is not something I have clearly defined here, because I haven't defined audiences yet. So what I mean is I have an idea of a specific audience. So maybe digital analyst could be an audience. And so I could check, okay, for which kind of audience a specific kind of content piece work better. Sometimes it can be hard to really figure out how to segment it. But there are ways to do it. And so I just define some content sources. I mean, this is simple. So I can see, okay, I have content views, and then I can just break it down by views on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on my blog, on Twitter. So I think, Twitter, I'm not sure if they have a view metric. Anyway, so I think you get an idea. Same if I get, for example, later when I get packages requests, of course I can ask about the industry the people are in, company size, position, marketing channel. The nice thing about this is like when I now define this kind of segments, I, for example, can make sure that later in the forms that I use on my website, I ask these questions because, no, not marketing channel, but I ask these questions here because I need to get them answered. So that's the thing. This is why I define segments. And then in the last step, I looked into different kind of funnels. And so this is not all like, so these two ones here are for the focus metrics, and I think these are the ones that I will implement. And I already defined them as well, like in Arvo. So we will look into this in the next episode, where I define in more details the funnels. But funnels is one of the most important things in basically every setup that I work with. It's basically like, what I like about funnels is like, of course it's a model, so you simplify the world in a way that you put a linear model on top of the world, how steps should be proceeded, but it gives you an idea how deep people go into something. So like the easiest way, like the checkout funnel in a shop is like, so how far do you get the people to actually buy something? And it's really interesting to see because, of course, you lose people on the way to really get an idea how much people do you lose, and then later to get this as your initial idea to analyze, okay, why do we lose the people and maybe can we improve it? And so this is why I like to define funnels. And here I have simple funnels. So it's like content view, content subscription, if possible. So for example, in the blog it's possible, in YouTube it's possible as well. On LinkedIn, yeah, surely it would be possible with some workarounds, but it's not coming out of the box. But that's fine. So then we have package viewed. So this is on my website. And then, of course, like I have something, each package page has a button to basically schedule a call with me. And so I basically would have like a funnel that someone sees a package, schedules a call, or starts to schedule the call and then schedules the call and so on. And then like here in the top, you can see is like basically like when someone becomes an email subscription, I send them some kind of content and then at some point they schedule, they buy and they deliver. So basic ideas. You will develop a lot of funnels over time, which can be really interesting. And depending on project, I then also have a cohort space. So I didn't look into it right now. I mean, of course, I will have retaining customers at some point. But right now, it's not really a focus thing. And like cohorts or retention is usually something which is really more important when you have, for example, software as a service or an app where it's basically part of your business model that people come back maybe on a daily basis and so on. So then, for example, it would make sense to already define some cohorts. I mean, like, so usually just that you can see it. I mean, the easiest cohort is like the weekly based. This is the standard cohort, or you have it on months, so monthly based cohort, but you can also create cohorts on marketing channel. But since the cohort is looking into the performance over time and you define usually an event that defines the coming back, basically, like you start in week 1 and then you look over the next 14 weeks. And so, of course, you have to define what you should analyze in the next weeks. So it's usually something about coming back or doing something additionally. And right now I don't really have it. So I could define some cohorts, but right now I don't do it. And so that's it. That's basically my metrics framework. So as you can see here, I mean, yeah, so let's go up again. I have defined some focus metrics, but I really have not fleshed it out. And so this is something I do usually in the next step. So you will see this. And I will work then in a different tool. And it is also the tool where I will set up my tracking plan. And there, in the next episode, I want to show you how this goes hand in hand. So how the focus metrics and going up again, and here, my whole business objects in action, how they basically create the tracking plan. And the interesting thing, what you would see is like, I will rarely check my website in that point when I do the tracking plan. I mean, at some point, I need to implement stuff on the website because some stuff that I define here, I can only get from the website. But what I want to show you next time is like to start the tracking plan also from your business side, from your goals, and from the metrics that you want to track. Because by that, you make sure that you can track the metrics. I saw setups where like a setup was being created, and in the end, they figured out that some kind of metrics couldn't be calculated based on the stuff they have tracked. And so this is my approach, how I do it. And so I really hope that was interesting for you. Maybe it created some kind of ideas for you. And so I love to see you in the next episode. See you next time.